So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to hand this over to Ingrid, who will be able to provide a very personal insight. Ingrid.
Thank you so much for that, Andrew. And just a warning, I like to pace when I think, so if I'm walking up on stage, that's perfectly normal for me. And well, I have been in love with IBM's ideas of innovation and technology ever since I was a very young girl, everywhere from sneaking my Game Boy under the bed covers because I'm sure my mom wasn't looking, to asking for scanners and fancy software for Christmas to play around with. This was a love for me that persisted into my college days, where I ended up taking a Bachelor of Science in Informatics at Indiana University, where I not only took classes based on stuff that I realized was good to know for my future job prospects, but also because I was just in love with it. Like, I took Java classes not just because nearly every enterprise has been using it in some form or another, but it was the language that a game I played a lot in my childhood was coded in, and that was something that was really empowering for me. As it turns out, the informatics school was still trying to get off the ground itself, and it had a nice fancy career offices and everything. I heard some great stats about the sort of things the people in the informatics school got to do. So that got me really hyped up about my particular job prospects and the kind of career path I would be able to trailblaze. Let's just say, unfortunately, other elements conspired against me in that. And I'm certainly not the only one who ended up having issues trying to find employment. Because as it turns out, according to NPR, 42% of 20-something autistics are unemployed. I don't think I have to tell you how unacceptable that is, but it's even worse when you can see that there are even better prospects for people that have other sorts of disabilities. There are other places where these kinds of supports are there, but unfortunately they aren't there for people on the autism spectrum. There's a lot of reasons. Getting in the front door is hard. Staying there is hard when people assume that you know how to navigate that social landscape when no one ever bothered to explain it to you. And so, let's just say my job hunt was in for a wild ride. Now, I started pretty early. I started looking for internships and jobs at about my junior year of school. That's when they told me to do it, and I made sure to make use of that career office very handily. I got my resumes triple-checked and printed on fancy paper. I went to career fairs with all of my nice little padfolio and everything, and made sure I got dressing tips. On those off chances I did get in for an interview, I made sure to go there and practice. I thought that I was set, but as it turns out, there are a whole lot of landmines to navigate. Interviews especially are really difficult because, yeah, I can't necessarily read the interviewer's minds through body language like everyone else can. And as it turns out, not everybody says exactly what they mean when they say things. Like, you know that one interview question, what do you want to do in 5 years? I learned the hard way that that does not necessarily mean literally what do you want to do in 5 years in your heart of hearts. It means, how can I dress that up to sound really good for whatever company I happen to be applying for at the moment? And when you value authenticity and feeling true to yourself, as much as me and many other people on the spectrum do, that kind of gets soul-crushing after a while. So it was a months-long routine of getting up, making coffee, logging into Indeed, finding 3 things to apply for, wash, rinse, repeat. Occasionally having an interview you get your hopes up for, only for them to get crushed again when you check your email inbox. But eventually my mom came across something. She was going back to school, also at Indiana University, and she was doing a program on nonprofits. And that's where she came across Specially Stern and learned that they were doing a partnership with IBM. She was stoked. I was cynical. Oh boy, another opportunity. Bet this one's going to fall through like the last 70 did. But I put it in for one of my 3 job applications for the day, just so I could check off that box, but hey, I ended up getting accepted into it. It was a month-long work assessment. Yay, a month of not just sitting around not doing anything. I was a little skeptical of that at first too, because when I heard work assessment, my expectation was, okay, this week we're going to go through this programming language, this week we're going to go through this job skill. They had us working with Lego Mindstorm robots, which kind of threw me for a bit, but then I realized that they were looking at the stuff that actually matters for the job. You know, being able to learn, adapt, grow, change, the stuff that's really important in tech, and not just knowing everything by rote. I went from playing dice games in the desert where everything was rigged against me to finally having a chance. The assessment wrapped up, it was great, I made friends. And then it was more waiting. Then in December, I'd gotten it back. I'd finally been accepted. Once again, my mom was a lot more excited about it than I was, mainly because I think I was still processing what exactly that meant. But eventually picked out an apartment. We moved in, and January 9th, 2018, I walked into the doors of CIC Lansing, not as an assessee anymore, but as a proper, full-fledged IBMer. Now, the first few months were roughly what I was expecting. You know, you get in, you do all your onboarding stuff, you set up your laptop, you learn where your desk is, you set up your voicemail box. You read 5 miles worth of PowerPoint and go through flash modules that look like they were made back in 2007. And generally get up to speed on what this whole testing business is. Since while I got an education that, in a lot of different tech-related stuff, that wasn't necessarily something I'd focused on. So yay, good on IBM for always being there to teach and learn things. And I spent a little while getting actually assigned to a project, so yeah, I was stuck waiting again, but hey, I was getting paid to wait this time, so that's a big improvement. And I learned a lot of stuff about IBM Watson and stuff in that time, so it wasn't a total loss. But yeah, I eventually got put on the state of Florida project since I had a little bit of experience in that area. And my feet were thrown right into the fire because I was there testing some of the most complicated functionality of the program right at the very start. And it's a government program, so they have to be able to audit everything, so I made one mistake setting up my test data. I had to go and do it all over again. And, well, learning how to do stuff like that gave me a sense of confidence and competence. Hey, I can really do this, instead of the feeling that I had walking in the door where it's just like, this is great, but what if I mess it up? And then they continue to be surprised. They gave me a chance to speak on some of my experiences in April when they had their Autism Awareness Month going on and inform on that, which I thought was amazing given the fact that I'd only been there for a scant 3 months at that point. And then there's the whole When Neurodiversity Works thing. They brought in a film crew for that and everything. It's like, wow, that's really amazing. And then, hey, being able to stand here right now, if I had said that I'd be at a conference like this, or get invited to a conference like this within my first year of really being employed after college, at the very start, I'd have sounded incredibly pretentious, but that's just apparently how IBM does things. It was amazing. I really felt like I'd hit the jackpot. The problem was, I felt like I hit the jackpot, because while not everywhere is as amazing as IBM is, there should at least be some more of an accessible pathway like the one I went through to get into things. Only about 15 to 25% of autistic adults attain independent living, according to a study I found by the National Institute for Mental Health. And there are a lot of ways why this can be difficult for somebody on the autism spectrum. For instance, driving can be very, very difficult when you have sensory issues that make you basically unable to focus on the stuff you actually need to focus to. So you have to figure out different transportation solutions. It can be difficult with issues of executive function, which basically there's lag between your brain and your body when it actually comes to wanting to do things with stuff like paying your bills. Bill auto pay is great for that, by the way. I'm so glad that's a thing. And then just being naive and socially naive at times and getting taken advantage of at the very worst. And those supports just drop off after high school. Like some people seem to assume that autism is just a thing you have when you're a kid and then you grow out of it. Nope, it's in our brains. We're stuck with it for life, but apparently the world hasn't caught up with that yet. Knowing all of that, you can imagine why being a part of this program means so, so much to me. After I'd been rejected so many times, somebody finally took a chance. They were willing to see the potential that was there, rather than looking and seeing if I already had the polished package, like every single one of those job postings that seem to expect 2 to 3 years of experience for an entry-level job. I don't think that means what you think it means. I want to help people see autism not as a mystery, but as a window into another world. One weird trend I see with the conversations around autism is that it often gets focused around the people who are experiencing the autistic person rather than the autistic person themselves. And I mean, that would be a weird thing to do in basically any other context, but it's something that is just, you hear it all the time, but people don't really seem to get it either because they honestly don't know how to, or they just have these assumptions in their minds that they're just not willing to get rid of. And hey, it's really simpler than a lot of people can make it out to be, like Andrew was talking about in setting up the program. But after everything, I'm so grateful that IBM gave me the chance to be here right now doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much.